Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to unpack complex topics, give you the essential knowledge, and hopefully some surprising insights along the way.
That's the goal.
And today, we are really plunging into something significant. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. You hear it called the IRGC, or sometimes SIPA or Pasdaran.
Yeah, and it's huge, not just, another military unit. It's arguably one of Iran's most powerful organizations. Its influence, it touches pretty much everything, domestic stuff, foreign policy, the economy.
Right. So our mission today for this deep dive is to kind of trace how the IRGC got here. It started back in 1979, basically as a street force during the revolution.
Exactly. Humble beginnings, you could say. And we want to look at how it became this, multifaceted entity it is now.
Yeah.
Military power, sure, but also political, economic, and this deep ideological core.
And how those core beliefs really drive what they do.
Precisely. We want to give you that full picture.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Post-revolution Iran, 1979. What did that actually look like on the ground? Must have been chaotic.
Oh, absolutely chaotic. Fragmented is a good word. You had the fall of the Shah, and then this power vacuum. And into that stepped these local groups, these comites, Islamic Revolutionary Committees.
Right, the committee.
Yeah, and lots of armed volunteers, too, often working out of mosques. And they
Yeah.
basically just appointed themselves, vigilantes in a way. They
Okay.
were running secret trials, carrying out executions. I mean, there's a quote describing them as being like the justice ministry, the law court, the police, and gendarmerie all rolled into one. Power was really decentralized, almost neighborhood by neighborhood.
So a kind of controlled chaos, or maybe uncontrolled. How did the actual provisional government try and deal with that? They must have tried to get a handle on it.
They definitely tried. It was a struggle, though. There were plans floated, to purge some of the committees that were maybe going too far, try to merge the militiamen into some kind of national police force.
Standard procedure, try to centralize.
Right. Restore some kind of normal state function. But it wasn't that simple.
And this is where the IRGC itself really starts to form, isn't it? Ayatollah Khomeini makes a key move.
An absolutely critical move. April 1979. You have these high-profile assassinations happening. The chaos was ongoing, and Khomeini steps in. He orders the establishment of the IRGC. But crucially, as a special armed force.
Special how?
Special in that it answered only to the Revolutionary Council, which was dominated by the clerics, and not to the provisional government. It was loyal directly to the Islamic fundamentalists driving the revolution.
Ah, okay. So right from the start, it's separate. A different kind of military force.
Exactly. Independent from the regular army, the Artesh, and the police. Set apart.
And what's fascinating is how they saw themselves, even that early on. They used phrases like popular and revolutionary individuals having Islamic magnanimity.
Yeah, and this sort of dual nature. Merciful among themselves, but harsh toward the infidels. That self-perception really set the tone, didn't it? Protectors of the revolution, but also its enforcers.
Absolutely. And it grew incredibly fast, right? The initial numbers were pretty small.
Yeah, the expectation was maybe 6,000 members initially, but by June 1980, so just over a year later, it was already around 30,000.
Nah.
So it became clear very quickly this wasn't just some temporary militia. It was being built as a serious counterweight to the traditional military and as the guardian of this new Islamic system.
And that rapid growth, that wasn't just random recruitment. It ties into Khomeini's vision for it, right? This idea of an ideological army. What did he actually mean by that?
Yeah, that concept is central. It wasn't about building just another army focused on, tactics and hardware in the traditional sense. It was about creating a force driven, first and foremost, by religious faith and absolute loyalty to the revolution's ideals.
So motivation matters more than anything else.
Pretty much. Discipline, competence, yes, but rooted in Islamic equity. And Khomeini explicitly rejected self-interest or money as reasons for joining. The idea was commitment stemming from, a deep spiritual conviction.
That sounds incredibly powerful, but also maybe hard to maintain as you get bigger. How did they actually screen people? Who were they looking for?
The selection was apparently very rigorous. They were looking for that deep commitment. You needed, and this is specific wording, faith in the Islamic creed and the unified world Islamic nation.
Okay.
And also, significantly, a love of jihad and martyrdom. You had to believe in God, the supreme leader, the idea of divine victory, resurrection, and that Islam's warriors were righteous.
So it's not just signing up for military service, it's a calling almost.
Very much so. Spiritual conviction was paramount, maybe even more than pure military skill, especially early on.
Okay, so you had this ideologically driven force. How did that translate into how they actually plan to operate militarily?
Well, it led to a pretty distinct military doctrine. guided by 5 main principles. Think of it as fusing spiritual duty with tactics.
Okay, what were they?
First was the mobilization of the public, the Basijo Mumi,
Well,
getting the whole society involved and supportive. Second, fostering really strong personal bonds and trust between commanders in the ranks. They called it military command. Not just hierarchy, but connection.
makes sense for a revolutionary force.
Third, constant military preparedness, always assuming threats. Fourth, ensuring any retaliation strictly followed Islamic laws, a kind of religiously sanctioned approach to warfare. And fifth, prioritizing surprise through secrecy and constant surveillance.
And Khomeini's own words about this are pretty powerful, aren't they? That the IRGC is equipped with divine power, that their weapon is Allahu Akbar, which no power in the world can counter.
Absolutely. That's not just rhetoric. It's a core belief. It underscores their conviction that their mission is divinely ordained.
Which brings us to the role of the supreme leader. First Khomeini, now Khamenei. He's central to this whole structure.
Absolutely central. Under the concept of Velaya Afaki, the guardianship of the Islamic jurist, the supreme leader isn't just a political figure. He's seen as embodying the revolution itself.
So the IRGC's loyalty isn't just personal loyalty to the man.
No, it's ideological. It's loyalty to the position and what it represents, the continuation and protection of the Islamic Revolution and its principles.
And Khomeini's view of the world definitely shaped this. He saw the international system as this constant struggle, right? Good versus evil.
Yeah, a perpetual conflict. Good being Shia Islam, specifically the Islamic Republic of Iran, and evil being, well, mainly the West, and especially the United States, the great Satan.
And that belief wasn't just talk. It directly led to Iran actively supporting other Islamic groups and liberation movements around the world.
Exactly. It became part of their foreign policy doctrine, this conviction that, real peace with aggressors, particularly the U.S., was basically impossible. You had to resist.
And this ties into that unconventional idea of victory you mentioned earlier. It wasn't just about winning battles.
Right. For Khomeini, victory wasn't necessarily defined by battlefield success in the way, say, a Western military might see it.
Yeah.
Victory was achieved by fulfilling your religious duty.
Which duty was?
To fight God's enemies. Regardless of the outcome on the ground, regardless of the cost, if you fulfilled that duty, you had achieved a kind of victory. It fundamentally changes how you approach conflict.
That is a really different mindset. It helps explain their resilience, maybe, in things like the long Iran-Iraq War.
Definitely. And thinking about military power, after that war, Khomeini actually approved seeking some pretty advanced capabilities.
Including nuclear weapons?
Yes, he specifically approved efforts to acquire nuclear weapons alongside other advanced arms. The goal was explicitly stated: boost military power and enable offensive operations.
This wasn't just a vague wish list, was it?
No, not at all. He talked about needing hundreds of infantry brigades, thousands of tanks, artillery pieces, missiles, and specifically mentioned the desire for laser and atomic weapons.
Wow! That's a huge ambition, a real strategic shift towards projecting power, not just defense.
A massive shift. It really set the course for Iran's long-term military development, much of which falls under the IRGC's umbrella.
And this drive, this willingness to fight, regardless of cost, it seems connected to the martyrdom culture within the IRGC. That's a major element, isn't it?
It's profound, yeah. Deeply rooted in Shia history, particularly the martyrdom of Imam Hussein. And it's not just a historical memory, it's actively promoted.
How so?
Through initiatives like the Culture of Self-Sacrifice, which puts out magazines, books, really embedding this ideal, and it has tangible effects.
Like the human demining.
Exactly. That's probably the most extreme example. Basij members, believing that dying as a martyr guarantees immediate entry to heaven, were used to clear minefields with their bodies during the Iran-Iraq War. It fosters an incredible level of commitment, even to the point of self-sacrifice being seen as a positive outcome.
It's hard to comprehend from an outside perspective, but clearly vital to understanding their mindset. Okay, so this ideological army, how has it actually structured itself over the years to pursue these goals?
It's evolved significantly. Today, the IRGC isn't just one monolithic block. It's broadly organized into 5 main branches. You've got the ground force, the Navy, the aerospace force, which controls the missiles, the Quds force for external operations, and the Basij organization of the oppressed, which is massive.
Right, the Basij. Let's talk about them domestically first. They started early on, too.
Founded in 1980, then later formally brought under the IRGC umbrella. It transformed into the Basij Resistance Force.
Okay.
Its main jobs today build this huge social support base for Supreme Leader Khamenei and, crucially, maintain internal order.
How do they do that?
Through things like moral policing on the streets, cracking down hard on dissidents and protests, and even getting involved in elections to support certain candidates, they're the eyes and ears and sometimes the fist of the regime internally.
And their reach is just incredible, isn't it? The numbers are staggering.
They really are. We're talking over 54,000 bases across the country. And think about this, 23,000 of those are reportedly in mosques. Plus, they have pupil units in schools, recruiting heavily from, lower socioeconomic classes who might see membership as offering opportunity or status. It's not just military. It's this deep social and ideological network woven into the fabric of society.
Almost cradle-to-grave influence?
Kind of, yeah. And they have specialized units within the besieged, too, like the Fathin Special Forces snipers, anti-riot teams, and the Imam Ali battalions, specifically trained and deployed to crush protests and handle internal security threats.
Okay, so that's the boots on the ground, the social control. What about intelligence and cyber?
Yep, they're big in those areas, too.
Yeah.
The IRGC intelligence organization was formally set up in 2009, partly in response to the Green Movement protests. Its main job is hunting down dissidents, neutralizing internal opposition, basically safeguarding the regime from within.
And the cyber front. We hear a lot about Iranian cyber activities.
Right. The IRGC Cyber Defense Command was established around 2014. It runs what they call a cyber army.
What does that army do?
It monitors online activity for crimes, fights what they see as the online destruction of cultural and social values, so censorship and control, and actively goes after political dissidents online. They've run specific operations targeting activists like ones codenamed Mozellan and Deep Sedition. It's the ideological battleground extended online.
Okay, so comprehensive internal control. Then how do they project power outside Iran?
That's primarily the job of the Quds Force. QDS. It's the IRGC's expeditionary arm, responsible for external operations, paramilitary, covert, supporting allies.
And this ties into that expert the revolution idea.
Exactly. The Quds Force embodies that mission, what they sometimes call revolutionary internationalism. It's about actively supporting groups that align with Iran's ideology and strategic goals across the region, viewing the world through this lens of ongoing conflict.
And who are these groups? The Axis of Resistance?
That's the term often used, yeah. It includes major players like Hezbollah in Lebanon, various Shia militias in Iraq and Syria, groups like Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad in Gaza and the West Bank, and definitely the Houthis in Yemen.
And the support is significant, like the Houthi missiles.
Oh, yeah. The evidence is pretty clear that Iran, through the Quds Force, provides weapons, training, funding. The long-range missiles the Houthis have used against shipping in the Red Sea and even targets in Israel are a prime example of that capability transfer.
And historically, the IRGC and Quds Force have been linked to direct attacks too, haven't they, against U.S. and Israeli interests?
There are numerous allegations, many well documented. You have the bombings targeting the Israeli embassy and the AIA Jewish Center in Argentina back in the early 90s.
Right.
The Khobar Towers bombing in Saudi Arabia in 96, which killed U.S. servicemen. And going further back, the deadly bombings of the U.S. Embassy and the Marine Barracks in Beirut in 1983, largely attributed to precursors of Hezbollah acting with Iranian support and direction. These aren't random acts. They fit the pattern.
So it's military, it's intelligence, it's internal security, it's external operations, but it's also economic, right? That's often overlooked.
Hugely economic. The IRGC controls a vast economic empire. It's involved in telecommunications, real estate, construction, has major holdings on the Tehran Stock Exchange.
How does that work? Through specific companies?
Yeah, particularly through its engineering arm, the Khatam al-Anbiya headquarters. It gets massive government contracts, especially in infrastructure and construction, which also connects it directly to Iran's vital oil and gas industry.
So it's not just funding its operations, it's deeply embedded in the entire Iranian economy.
Exactly. It blurs the lines completely between the state, the military, and business. It gives them immense power and makes them incredibly hard to disentangle from the very structure of the Iranian state.
Okay, let's shift to how they think about actual warfare, their strategic doctrine. You mentioned a shift after 9/11.
Yeah, around 2005, Iran formally adopted what's called a territorial defense doctrine. It's sometimes described as a layered and flat defense.
What does that mean, practically?
It's designed specifically with a potential conflict with the U.S. in mind. It involves setting up multiple defensive layers, 4 main ones, apparently stretching from the borders deep into the country's interior and provinces. Different IRGC units have responsibility for different layers. It's about defense in depth, making any invasion incredibly costly.
And the missiles play a key role here.
A crucial role. The IRGC Aerospace Force has a monopoly on Iran's ballistic and cruise missile arsenal. Since Iran lacks a truly modern air force capable of competing with, say, the U.S. or Israel, these missiles are their primary tool for conventional deterrence and power projection. They can threaten targets across the Middle East.
And then what about at sea, particularly in the Persian Gulf?
There, they focus on unconventional or asymmetric naval warfare. Think less about big warships and more about speed, mobility, surprise.
The small, fast boats we hear about?
Exactly. Swarms of small, fast attack craft, often armed with missiles or rockets, operating alongside coastal defense missiles, mines, drones. The idea is to overwhelm a technologically superior navy, like the U.S. Navy, in the confined waters of the Gulf.
And this is where the martyrdom culture comes in again, even at sea.
Apparently so. There are reports about the indoctrination of naval recruits, preparing them psychologically for suicide attacks against enemy vessels, if necessary. It shows how that core ideology permeates even their naval tactics.
So pulling all these threads together, there's this overarching theme, isn't there? This idea that for the IRGC, there's no divide between war and peace.
That really sums up their strategic culture, I think. They seem to view themselves as being in a state of continuous combat, whether it's suppressing dissent at home, supporting proxies abroad, engaging in cyber warfare, or preparing for conventional conflict. It's all part of the same ongoing struggle.
A borderless concept of armed struggle.
Yeah. Defending the revolution and advancing its goals, both inside Iran and beyond its borders. It's not a force that just switches on during wartime. It sees itself as permanently engaged.
Okay. So wrapping this up, what should you, our listener, take away from all this? We've seen the IRGC grow from, a revolutionary street militia into this incredibly complex, powerful force.
Yeah, a multi-domain player, military, political, economic, ideological, all deeply woven into the Iranian state and its leadership. And crucially, shaped by this concept of being an ideological army.
Where victory isn't always about winning on the map.
Exactly. And where martyrdom isn't just a historical footnote, but a celebrated ideal, even a strategic tool.
So the final thought for you is maybe this. What are the real implications of having such a powerful organization, a key state actor, operate with this unique strategic culture? One that sees itself in constant borderless conflict, driven by ideology, and not necessarily bound by traditional ideas of winning and losing.
What does that mean for stability in the Middle East, for global dynamics? How does this deep intertwining of faith, revolutionary ideology, and hard power shape the future?
Lots to think about there. It certainly gives you a deeper understanding of a critical player on the world stage.